The snow had started falling early that morning, gentle and quiet, like it hadn't yet decided whether to stay. I stood at the front steps of my son's house, holding a gift basket wrapped in red ribbon and my best attempt at cheer. I'd spent the night baking gingerbread cookies and knitting a scarf for my granddaughter, even though my hands had started to ache more often these days. Ethan's house loomed tall and modern, all glass windows and polished metal railings, a house that didn't remember the past. I took a breath and rang the bell. It was Christmas Day after all. The door opened with laughter spilling out. A young woman, one of Ethan's friends, or maybe someone from his wife's family, smiled politely and stepped aside. Inside, the living room glowed golden, decked in elegant magazine. Worthy Dacre. A 12-foot tree sparkled with silver ornaments. Children ran around with toy drones. Laughter, clinking glasses, the sound of a grand piano playing through the speakers. It was beautiful. But I didn't feel like I belonged. Ethan spotted me across the room and gave me a nod, not the kind of greeting you'd give the woman who raised you from nothing. But I smiled anyway and walked up to him. "Mom," he said, "you made it." I leaned in for a hug. He returned it, one arm stiff. Already my heart twisted. "I brought some cookies," I said, lifting the basket, "and the scarf for Ava, the one with He cut me off. "Just leave it in the kitchen. Someone will take care of it." I blinked. He turned before I could say more, returning to a conversation with a tall man in a suit. I stood there, gift in hand, ignored. Again. No one really noticed me. I was a faded photograph in a room full of portraits. Still, I tried. I smiled at people, asked about their holidays, handed out cookies. Most were polite. A few even thanked me, but I saw it in their eyes. They didn't know who I was. Or worse, they assumed I was the help. When dinner was called, a long, gorgeous table stretched across the dining room, lit with tall candles and crystal glasses. Each place had a name card, personalized, elegant calligraphy. I scanned the table, no card for me. Maybe it was an oversight. I moved toward the end of the table, toward a spare chair. As I reached to pull it out, Ethan stepped in front of me. "That seat's taken," he said softly but firmly. I froze. "Oh, I didn't see a name. It's for Claire's father. He just stepped out for a call." "Oh, I see." I looked around. "Is there another seat?" His voice lowered, and so did the warmth in it. "Mom," he said, "there's not really. Look, it's already a full house, and we're trying to keep things comfortable. You understand, right? It's not like you helped with the setup or expenses. You're just here to visit." My heart stopped. "Excuse me." He glanced around, suddenly nervous. A few guests had quieted. The air shifted. "You're not exactly contributing. You just show up, eat, and sit around like a freeloader. I mean, come on, Mom, this is a formal dinner. We have company." His words hit like ice water. A freeloader. The word echoed in my mind, loud, sharp. My cheeks flushed red, from shame or disbelief, I couldn't tell. I stood there, holding onto the back of the chair like it was the last thing keeping me upright. "I see," I said quietly. "Well then, I won't be any trouble." I set the gift basket on a side table, took my coat from the rack. No one stopped me, not even Ethan. Only Ava, my 8-year-old granddaughter, noticed. She looked up from her seat and frowned. "Grandma," she whispered, but her voice was lost in the clatter of forks and the pouring of wine. I walked out into the cold. The hungry years Ethan was born in a rainstorm. I still remember the cracked hospital ceiling above my head, the buzz of fluorescent lights, and the silence of a room too bare to echo joy. His father wasn't there. He'd walked out halfway through my pregnancy, claiming he wasn't ready to be a dad. I was 19. The first few years blurred together. I worked as a cleaner in the mornings, a waitress in the evenings, and sometimes folded laundry overnight at a hotel just for cash tips. There were nights I'd skip dinner so Ethan could eat a second helping of rice. There were days I walked to work in snow with holes in my shoes because he needed new ones for school. No one clapped, No one wrote it down, no medals, no headlines, just me and the quiet resolve of a mother. I remember the time he got pneumonia at 6. We were living in a one-room rental with broken heating. I stayed up every night with him on my chest, rocking him gently, humming lullabies I had to make up on the spot because I'd forgotten the ones from my own childhood. I used the last of my savings for antibiotics, and we lived on canned beans and crackers for weeks. I never told him how scared I was. Only how strong he was. The first computer when he turned 12, he asked me for a laptop. He said he wanted to learn coding. I didn't even know what coding was, but I learned. I picked up extra shifts and skipped buying my asthma medication to save money. I found a second-hand laptop in a pawn shop and scrubbed it clean with so much care, it might as well have been new. When I gave it to him, his eyes lit up like it was Christmas and birthday rolled into one. He never forgot that gift. Or so I thought. He built everything from that machine school projects, games, then later, his college application. He got a scholarship, yes, but not enough to live on. So I worked 2 more jobs while he went to college out of state. I sold my wedding ring, the only thing I had left from that brief, broken marriage, to help cover his deposit for student housing. He called me once a week, told me he missed me, said he'd pay me back one day. He never had to. I never asked. That's what mothers do. The startup and the silence after college. Ethan started a company, a small tech firm. I didn't understand half of what he did, but I cheered him on like he was inventing the future. I still remember when he called and said, "Mom, we got our first investors. I'm going to be somebody." He forgot to mention that the first seed money, the $15,000 that helped him register, lease a space, and survive the first 6 months, came from the inheritance I never touched. My father left it to me when he passed, and I'd saved it for something that mattered. To me, Ethan's dream mattered. He took it gratefully, never once asked where I got it. Maybe he didn't care, or maybe he didn't want to know. The company grew. He married a lovely girl, Claire. She came from money, with a family that vacationed in Europe and discussed stocks over brunch. I wore the same dress to their engagement dinner and wedding because I couldn't afford to. After the wedding, things changed. Subtly at first, fewer calls, less eye contact. He started calling me Ma instead of Mom. It felt formal. Cold, like a placeholder. When they bought the house, I offered to help unpack. Claire thanked me politely but told me they'd hired professionals. When Ava was born, I wasn't in the delivery room. I waited in the hospital cafe for 7 hours, holding a teddy bear in a paper bag. I smiled in every photo, but I saw the lines, the invisible boundaries they drew to keep me just close enough for holidays and babysitting, but not close enough to matter. Still, I held on, because he was my son. The last time I was needed, the last time Ethan called me with any urgency, it wasn't for love. It was when Claire was out of town and Ava had the flu. He needed someone to watch her. I came immediately. Stayed up all night changing sheets, sponging her forehead, singing to her while she threw up between sobs. The next morning, Ethan thanked me with a quick nod and a coffee from the drive-through. I didn't ask for anything more. Maybe that's where I went wrong, always giving, never asking. So much of my life had been built around his dreams that I never noticed when mine disappeared. Until Christmas Day, when he finally said it out loud. Freeloader. That word had carved a hole in me so deep, it echoed days later. Not a petty list. Not one of names or slights, but a list of truths. I gave birth to Ethan in pain and raised him in poverty. I fed him when I was hungry. I paid for his education, his first computer, his first chance. I gave him the seed money for his company, money that wasn't mine to begin with, but left to me by my father. I signed papers I didn't fully understand because he said, "It's just for formality, Mom." And that last one, That was the one that haunted me, because tucked inside that formality was a document that transferred the rights of my 40% stake in the company I funded to him in full. I wasn't stupid, just trusting, but trust has an expiration date. I called him not Ethan, I called Raj, my father's old lawyer. He was retired now, living somewhere warm, but he remembered me instantly. "Anna," he said, warm and surprised. "My God, you sound like your father." He had handled my father's modest estate. I told him everything. Forgotten stake in Ethan's company, the signatures, the silence. He went quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Come see me." I took a train 2 states over. Raj still had the paperwork. Still had my original documents. The transfer form Ethan had drafted for me to sign had a clause I didn't catch. But Raj caught it now. It wasn't legally binding, because I had signed it without notarization, without a witness, because Ethan had said, "It's just between us." That meant, technically, legally, I still owned 40% of the company. Or rather, the funds that created it. And while I didn't want to burn everything down, I wanted him to remember. The dinner invitation, I waited until the end of January before sending the letter. Not an email, a handwritten card in gold ink, * Ethan, I would like to invite you to dinner, just the 2 of us. No one else, no special occasion, no performance, just a mother and her son. I'll cook, come hungry. * love, Mom *, he responded via text. Ethan, sure, Thursday at 7, no apology, no explanation, just transactional, like everything else had become. That was fine, let him come, let him walk into the warmth of my tiny apartment and see who I really was, not the freeloader, but the foundation under his castle. I cooked the food of his childhood, lentil soup with garlic and cumin, flatbread from scratch, the caramelized rice with raisins he used to call sunshine rice. And for dessert, I made sweet cardamom milk, the kind I gave him when he was too tired to cry. I set the table with care. 2 plates, cloth napkins, the best cutlery I owned, even if one fork was a little bent. And in the center of the table, I placed a small, square box. Wrapped in brown paper, no ribbon, he arrived late, of course, wearing a sharp coat, talking into his earpiece, barely glancing at me when I opened the door. "Hey, Ma," he said, pecking the air near my cheek. "Smells nostalgic." I smiled. "You mean real?" He chuckled. "Sure, that too." We sat. He ate quickly at first, out of habit, then slower, like something in the food made him remember. "I haven't had this in years," he said finally. "Tastes like, I dunno, childhood." "I know," I said softly. "I used to make it after double shifts, so you wouldn't feel how empty the house was." He looked at me, frowning slightly. "I don't remember it like that." "No," I said, "you wouldn't. The box when we finished eating." I slid the box toward him. "What's this?" he asked. "A gift," I said. He opened it slowly. Inside, folded neatly, was a piece of construction paper, faded but preserved. A childish drawing in crayon. Him and me at a dinner table, a crooked tree in the corner, 2 stick figures with wide smiles. On top, in big letters, it read, "Me and Mommy Christmas forever." He stared at it. "I drew this?" he asked. "You did. You were 6, you said. Christmas is only Christmas if you sit with me." His face changed. Slightly, I reached under the table and pulled out another envelope, a legal one. "I went to see Raj," I said. "He showed me that the company stake I gave you. I never officially signed it over, not legally." Ethan sat up straight. "What? You remember that money? The money I gave you to start the business?" "Of course," he said. "I thought it was, I assumed. You assumed I would never claim it, that I wouldn't understand, that I was just a mother, just a woman in an old coat." He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. I continued. "I'm not taking the company. I'm not even taking my share. I'm giving it away to a foundation for single mothers, women like me, scraping to survive while the world forgets them. He blinked. You're giving it away? Yes, because I don't need it. I have my pride, my home, my hands. I leaned forward, eyes steady. But I need you to know, I'm not a freeloader. I never was. I paid for that seat at your table with my youth, my blood, my dreams, and you removed me from it like I was some leftover. I didn't mean, you did. Maybe not with cruelty, but with arrogance, with forgetfulness, and that's worse. He looked down. At the drawing, at the soup bowl, at everything he used to know, but no longer recognized. After that dinner with Ethan, I didn't hear from him for weeks. I didn't expect to. He needed time to unravel the knot between shame and memory, to look in the mirror and see the face of the boy I once held, now shadowed by the man he'd become. But I didn't wait. Instead, I built something new. With help from Raj and a local nonprofit, I created a fund, the Mother's Hands Foundation, dedicated to single mothers pursuing education, healthcare, or starting businesses of their own. Women who, like me, had been made to feel like burdens instead of backbones. I donated my share of Ethan's company to seed the foundation over $1, $2 million in value. It was the loudest silence I ever made. The article it started as a small feature in a local magazine. Retired seamstress launches fund for struggling mothers with surprise corporate stake. Then it spread blogs, online journals, even a segment on morning TV. Ethan's company was named in the articles, though I had never spoken ill of him publicly. I made sure of that. My story wasn't about revenge. It was about remembrance, but the internet doesn't care about privacy. The board started asking questions. His investors asked louder ones, and still I remained silent, not to protect him, but to free myself. The visit, it was early April when I heard the knock. Not hurried, not loud, just there. I opened the door to find Ethan not in a coat and suit, but in jeans, a hoodie, and tired eyes. He looked like a man who had finally run out of mirrors to avoid. "Hi, Mom." I stepped aside. He walked in slowly, taking in the modest apartment. The smell of lentil soup simmering, the same framed photo of him at age 10, holding a soccer trophy with crooked teeth and a smile too big for his face. He sat at the kitchen table, the same one he had once said wasn't mine. I joined him. Neither of us spoke for a long while. Finally, he placed something on the table, a checkbook. "I want to help the foundation," he said. I shook my head. "It's not your debt to pay anymore." "I'm not paying a debt," he said. "I'm planting roots in the right soil this time." I looked at him. Really looked. He had aged in the past few months, not in years, but in weight, the kind of heaviness that only truth can bring. "I was so wrong," he said, voice shaking. "I thought I built everything on my own. I forgot who carried me." "You didn't forget," I said softly. "You just chose comfort over memory." He nodded, and we sat there, letting the silence speak louder than apologies. My new life by June, the foundation had helped 17 women. We bought textbooks, covered daycare, funded a bakery startup, and even paid for a down payment on a 2-bedroom apartment for a woman fleeing domestic violence. I visited each of them personally, not as a savior, but as proof. One of them, a girl named Kira, barely 20, hugged me after I handed her a set of keys. "My mom kicked me out when I got pregnant," she whispered, "but this feels like someone finally saw me." I told her the truth. "I didn't see you, I remembered you, because once I was you." The Christmas after 1 year later, on Christmas Day, I hosted a dinner. Not lavish, not curated, just warm. My apartment had been repainted. New curtains, the scent of cinnamon and fresh bread in the air. 15 people sat around the table, women and children from the foundation, neighbors, volunteers, even Raj, who brought his famous lemon cake. And then Ethan walked in. He stood at the doorway holding Ava's hand. The little girl ran to me with a squeal, wrapping her arms around my legs. "Grandma," she said, "Dad said we could come this year." I crouched down, kissing her forehead. Well then, I smiled. You're right on time. Ethan approached slowly. Mom, he said, is there a seat for us? I looked around the table, crowded, lively, filled with laughter. Then I stood, walked over to the cupboard, and pulled out 2 folding chairs. There's always room, I said. At the table I built, he sat down beside me, quiet, humbled, not forgiven in full. That would take time. But welcome, not because he was my son, but because I was whole without him now.